Good morning, everyone. I'm Roisin McKee, Project Director with the Hospitality and Tourism Skills Network, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on funded skills support from Invest Northern Ireland. This webinar is part of a series of information sessions that are being hosted by the HATS network in partnership with Tourism NI to share details on the available funded skills support which exists across a range of partner organisations to help you develop your people and your business as the industry starts on its pathway to recovery. You'll find details on tni.com for the other sessions in the series covering innovation vouchers, knowledge transfer partnerships, support for upskilling, apprenticeships and workplace health and well-being. All the sessions are being recorded, so you have the opportunity to access at a time that's convenient for you if you can't join us live. So before we begin, just by way of introduction, just to the HATS network, which I facilitate. HATS brings together a strategic group of sector employers and key stakeholders who have a collective interest in addressing issues around sector attractiveness and skills development within the industry. One strand of our activity is focused on raising employer awareness of funded skills support to help the sector build back better from the impact of the pandemic. So it's within this context that we're bringing you these bite-sized information sessions to hear about the skills support that's on offer. This webinar session will look at how you can access skills funded support from Invest Northern Ireland. So to begin, it's my pleasure to welcome David McKeown, who's Programme Manager with Invest NI. So to kick things off, I'll hand over to David for a short presentation, and then we'll open up for any questions at the end, which you can submit directly into the chat function on your screen. So David, you're very welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay, Roisin, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk through the skills offers that Invest NI can make to the sector. As Roisin has said earlier, I'm the Programme Manager for the range of skills supports that Invest NI offer to companies based in Northern Ireland. So there's three elements to what we actually do. One is non-financial and the other two are financial. So we'll start with the training needs analysis, which is non-financial support. So this is a range of free workshops. They're available virtually, as is everything we do. And it's really about helping organisations to prepare a training plan. So these workshops provide practical advice, identification of training needs. So the first one of there's two workshops. The first one is about identification of needs. So it's how to look at the needs of the company, the needs of the individual within the company or organisation, and how they fit together to achieve the overall goals, which is generally to increase and improve productivity. The second range of workshops is training needs to training plan. And this is taking the next stage to say, now that you've got the information on the training needs, so what needs do you have for your staff, and then how to convert that into a training plan. We do those on a regular basis. They're open to all, or we have done ones for specific sectors. So if there was an interest or a requirement to do one specifically for this network, then we can arrange to do that so that it's tailored to the more specific needs of the hospitality and tourism sector. So moving on to the financial support, there are two schemes. One of them, which is the first one I'll talk about, it's aimed at all companies, micro, small, SME, large. That's the skills for growth. It's open to all manufacturing, internationally tradable service companies. So for example, the hotel sector would fall under the second category. The maximum grant we can offer is up to €2 million because our approval was based on previous guidelines, therefore it's in euro, which equates to, depending on exchange rates, about 1.7 million. And the minimum offer we make is £1,000. Essentially anything less than that would be so small that our money wouldn't be seen to be making a significant difference. It's a variable rate of support. it's up to 50% of the eligible costs, and that rate varies depending on the nature of the training, the size of the company, whether it's the company's first time at training or whether it's third or fourth time. So someone may get 40% if it's their first time, or if it's particularly expensive or a major shift in training. Again, if it's the same company coming back for their third or fourth go, rates will be lower. So that is negotiated at the time on an individual company basis, an individual project basis. Normal project duration is anywhere from 24 to 60 months. COVID has pretty much stamped all over any timelines that we had. So we can do extensions. So for example, if we made an offer to someone at the beginning of 2020 for a 24-month period, we will extend that because we realize that things have changed where people were hoping to actually bring someone in or to go out for practical training. That just can't be done in current circumstances. And again, as the bottom line there is the training can be internal, it can be external, virtual or online. And external, just to put it in simple terms, that's where you take someone from outside the company. It could be a further education college, it could be a private training individual, it could be going out to another establishment. It's outside of your company or group of companies. Internal is where you have someone internal to your organization providing that training. So they're taken out of their normal job and our training staff. And virtual, this would come under the heading of virtual, where it's live training, but it's done over the internet, and that could be Zoom or GoToWebinar, whatever, or it could be online. And it's just the difference there really is online is where you can choose to do it in your own time. So it would be recorded or on a DVD, something like that. So the online is basically the person can go and access that training at a time that suits them rather than having to arrange 10 o'clock on a Monday morning we attend. So what's eligible? External trainer costs, again, I said external to the organization. If it's from a linked enterprise, then that would be deemed to be internal. So if you own another hotel, for example, that would be seen as internal or a related company. Travel and accommodation, where that's relevant. The last year has seen a massive decline in spend on travel and accommodation for training, but it is there and it's available. So as we open up, if you need staff to be sent overseas or even to a different part of Northern Ireland where an overnight stay is required, we can contribute to those costs. The internal trainer wage cost, again, that is someone taken out of their existing job and that time given over to training. It has to be at the wage cost, so whatever their salary is, so there can't be any additional overhead cost included in that. And again, for vouching purposes, we will need to see a selection of pay slips. So again, if companies have issues around that, then we wouldn't be able to do a proper vouch. Training materials, we can cover those where they're directly related to the training activities. So things like online manuals, online licenses, software for training, all of that's fine. The likes of a training room, overhead projectors, and laptops, we can't cover because those can be used for other purposes. And one of the other areas that a lot of companies find useful, particularly whenever cash is tight, is we can support the trainee wage costs, which is the time the trainees spend in training. So if you have to take your staff out of work for a day, if their standard day is 7.5 hours, then we can contribute towards their cost. Again, it is their wage cost. You can't have any additional overheads built into that. And on the trainee wage costs, those costs cannot be higher than all of the other costs above that total. So if your trainee wage costs come to 100,000 and all your other costs come to 70,000, you could only claim up to 70,000 of your trainee wage costs. And the reason for that is the state aid rules always say that we cannot be deemed to be giving wage substitution or just funding people's wages. So that's why we have to make sure that that is actually capped at all the same level as the other costs. So that's the good news, what's in. We now have to look at what's out. VAT is excluded. So if you're having to pay VAT on your external trainers, that will be excluded. Any mandatory training is excluded. And again, the rationale for that is if you must do it by law, then Invest NI offering you financial support to do it won't make any difference. It must be done. Generally tends to impact sectors like the construction trade, where there would be a lot of training required in things like flywheel training, health and safety, where by law people must be trained in it. Basic induction training, so learning the ropes about the company the first few days in, we don't include that, which is really where you're giving the new employees background to the company. We can't cover trainees in post for less than 3 months, and we can't cover trainees who are paid and based of outside Northern Ireland. May not be a massive issue in this sector, but we do have it where, for example, companies have a premises or have premises in Northern Ireland, maybe in Scotland, maybe in Dublin. We can only cover the cost of the trainees who are based and paid from Northern Ireland. We can't cover training which has commenced prior to the offer start date. This is important. It is one where unfortunately we see companies caught out where they commit to do training or they've commenced it and then they think we should apply to Invest Northern Ireland for financial support. If you have commenced the training or if you have committed to doing the training, so it's not just that you've paid for it or done it, if you've actually booked training and then you come to us the following week to say, I've booked this course, can I get financial support? Unfortunately, we can't do that. So it is something to bear in mind. If you're entitled to Invest NI support for skills, always make sure that you talk to, if you're looking for our support, talk to us before you book or start doing anything. Otherwise, there's a very strong possibility that those costs will be excluded. Capital items which can't be used for non-training purposes. So things like furniture for a training room, capital works for a training room, any computers, all of those would be excluded. And repeat training. So if a company comes to us and gets training, if they come back for further training, and we do not have a limit on the number of times companies can approach us. So we do have companies who have had their 3rd, 4th, even 5th training plan. The training has to be different. Now that could be at a higher level. It could be reskilling. It could be new types of training that are required. But what we don't support is companies coming back every 2 or 3 years to do exactly the same training. We expect companies to learn and to move on and to only be looking for our support whenever they're doing something new and different to them. So the application process for an Invest NI client, first of all, you make contact with your Invest NI client executive. They will arrange a meeting with a business advisor, and that's someone from my team. You complete an initial application. For the Skills for Growth, it's a 2-phase. There's an online process for the first phase. This is effectively to give you a start date. To complete this should take no more than about 15 minutes. It's the line in the sand to say, okay, we want to prepare a training plan. We know it might take us 2 or 3 months to do that, but there may be 1 or 2 courses we need to sign up for quickly. This allows you to have a start date so you can proceed with booking those crucial courses, but still gives you time to prepare the full training plan. And that could be through training needs analysis, or you may already have an idea. It's just simply getting the costs put together for your fully costed plan. And again, that full application would be submitted online via the Invest NI portal. And really that plan should have the details of what training you want to do, the costs broken down, and key performance indicators. And the reason that we ask for that is that we are looking for the companies to tell us, what do you hope to actually get from it? So is it a higher profit? Is it to bring in more visitors from outside of Northern Ireland? Is it to increase your hotel occupancy? Is it to spend on the internal catering? So it's really to say, why are you doing the training and what do you hope to gain from it? So you can actually see, is the training actually working and making a difference? Because at the end of the day, you're investing in your staff. You really need to know what you hope to get out and to measure, has the training actually worked? When the plan is in with us, it will go through an appraisal process. Essentially, this is us looking for, are the costs reasonable? Is any of the training mandatory? Is it repeat if you've had an offer from us before? And to look at the scale, is the cost of the trainee wages significantly greater than all of the other costs? That then goes through casework, and a letter of offer is issued, and that's issued through a device called Signable, which means it's all done electronically. There's no paperwork required from the initial application right through to the letter of offer going out and being signed. It's all done electronically, and again, particularly in the current circumstances, that speeds up the process where people can't get access to the office. So the other type of support we offer is the Skills Advancement Grant. This is specifically for small companies. So small companies just are defined there. So less than 50 full-time equivalent employees, annual turnover or balance sheet less than 10 million euros, again about 7.5 million sterling. And they have to be less than 25% owned by a linked enterprise. So for example, if you're a small hotel, but you're 50% owned by a larger group, you wouldn't qualify as a small company and you couldn't apply for this grant. Unlike the Skills for Growth, this grant has a fixed rate of support at 50%, and it's only for external costs. So 50% up to a maximum grant rate of £15,000, and again a minimum grant of 1,000, because really less than that our funding will not have a significant difference, and the amount of effort that you would put in to applying for maybe £300–400 would not be a good use of your time. Like Skills for Growth, the training providers can be based in Northern Ireland, they can be based further afield, they can be a college, institute, private provider. We do not specify. They may have a qualification, they may not have a qualification. Again, we do not specify. It is, what are your specific training needs? So in this case, up to 50%, external costs only. It's only available for 18 months. The other scheme has a variable date. This is 18 months. The reason for that is this is aimed at people, small companies who have really not had much dealing with us. It's quick. The amount of information we ask for is much more limited than we do with the Skills for Growth. So we want to get these turned around and spent as quickly as possible. This only has a single application, again, completed through the online Invest NI portal. We can't have a Skills for Growth and Skills Advancement active at the same time. The reason for this is we want to avoid companies having a Skills for Growth that maybe is offered at 35% against all costs, internal trainer, external trainer, trainee wage. Then they have a course and go, oh, we'll actually just apply for this course separately for external support. So it's to try and avoid that jumping around between schemes to try and keep things on an even keel. Again, available to companies or enterprises in the manufacturing or internationally tradable services. And again, that would really apply to the hotel sector and small companies. So the eligible costs in this one, external trainer costs, travel and accommodation, or training materials. So if you're doing virtual or online or training manuals, all that can be covered. The specific exclusions, again, like skills for growth, the mandatory training and VAT are out. However, internal wage costs are also out. Trainees outside Northern Ireland can't take part in this training. So if you have a hotel in Scotland or in the Republic, the employees based there can't avail of this. And we can't support training that's already been subsidised by Invest NI or the public sector. So for example, if you're doing a skills focused course with DFE, if you're an SME, you can get those courses free. You then couldn't approach Invest NI and say, oh, can you pay the wage element of this? If it's already been subsidised, we can't cover those costs. And the same goes for the skills for growth. So that is a brief run through of what we can offer in terms of financial support. So I know that I think we may already have some questions. So Roisin, if you want to see if there's anything out there.
Great indeed. Thanks very much, David. Certainly a very informative presentation. I think just to reiterate that we will be sharing the presentation in our follow-up with all of you, both the presentation and actually the recording. And I've no doubt that the supports that have been noted here will definitely play a critical role in helping the sector to build back with a better skilled and engaged workforce. So I just want to open up for some questions, just to remind you that you've got the chat function there that you can add to. I've got a few that have come in. David, just you've noted obviously the application process within the detail, but do businesses get help from Invest NI with the application? Sometimes there's a perception that these things can take a bit of time. So is there help then from Invest directly in terms of support with completing the application?
The business advisor is there. The business advisor who will be dealing with this will be there to provide support. It is a bit more difficult, obviously, when we can't actually call out to the premises as we used to do. But yes, once you've got that link sent out, if there's any issues, you can contact your business advisor through Teams, Skype, mobile telephone number. They will provide all of that to you, so they can talk the application through with you. We can also see where people are in the application process. So if they say that, so if a company says, listen, I think I've sent it in, we can go in and actually check and say, no, you haven't completed section 4 or whatever. But the business advisor is there to actually help you online and hopefully face to face once we're allowed to do that. So they can go out, talk it through with you and help you actually complete the application.
Okay, great, thanks. And is there a typical, I mean, I know obviously there's the different programs that are available there, but is there a typical turnaround time if somebody's considering applying now for some of these skills interventions to when their project might be starting?
In the skills advancement, which is the smaller one, from the date that we get the completed application with us, we would aim to have the offer out to you within 10 working days or sooner. Okay. The skills for growth, the initial application, we will again process that as soon as it comes in. We will then write to you to confirm that we've got it and effectively give you a start at your own risk date. From when the initial application or from when the full application comes in, we would expect to have that turned around within 20 working days. Now, a lot of that will depend because there's more information required for it. That will depend. So If the offer is maybe for £30,000 or £40,000, that shouldn't be a particular issue to get it turned around in 20 working days or possibly less. If we are looking at offers of the £300,000-400,000, and I appreciate there's not that many of those in this sector, then that will take longer because there is more work to be done in terms of accounting information required from the applicant. But for a small offer, if we're looking at under £50,000, whatever scheme you're looking at, we should be able to have those turned around for either within 10 working days for the small scheme, or certainly 20 to 25 working days for the larger one.
Okay, great. And you have mentioned it, but I mean, if businesses want to come together in a cluster to address a common skills need, have you examples? I mean, can that be supported, and does that work? That they could pull collectively to apply through some of the schemes?
The answer is, can we do it? Yes. Does it work? Yes, it does, and sometimes it doesn't. One of the best examples we actually have is from this sector, the Northern Ireland Hotels Federation. We've supported them on 2 or 3 occasions now. We get one application. The plus side is everybody is up to speed, and one person or one organisation is coordinating. The benefit of that, particularly for people who haven't used our support before, is the people we're dealing with, they know what they're doing. They make sure everything's in on time. It is annoying is the wrong word, frustrating and disappointing and sometimes heartbreaking when there's a group of companies and one of them has forgotten to send something in, and we have to say, here's your grant to company A, B, C, and D, and company E, sorry, you missed that deadline and you already started. And that's awful. It's an awful feeling for us. They feel annoyed and let down. But if you have one person doing it who makes sure everything's done, it also gives that bit of a strength in numbers, particularly where you're dealing with maybe a large training institution. We've done it there. We've done it in the IT sector with Scrum training, where there was a lot of small companies weren't confident in trying to get a decent deal. And what we did is one person, or from basically a trade body, went in, negotiated a better price, and also then coordinated all that training. So it can be done, and where it works extremely well. Where you don't have a strong lead and where there's not a real common thought around it, that's where it tends to fall apart, because people don't really know what they actually want, or they all assume they know what they want from it, but they haven't made that clear, and it begins to sort of dissipate.
Okay, great potential there. Maybe just one last one. I'm very conscious of time. For businesses that may be considering making an application to one of those schemes, what would your advice be in terms of what would you consider makes a successful application? So what is it that Invest NI is looking for? What should the business consider in preparing their application? If there's 1 or 2 things that you think that they need to consider, what would that be to make a successful application?
The best ones are they're good training plans, and they're not chasing grant. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but if the first conversation we have with a company is how much money can I get, as opposed to how can you help me with this training, or I really need my people trained in people skills or management skills, or I've people that I need to be trained in Spanish because we have a lot of Spanish speakers come here, or I want them trained in Irish because we know we're getting a lot of people up from the Gael talk. We want to promote that. That's great. You know what you want. You know it's about training. If it's about how much money do I get, basically people start to write stuff based on how much they think they'll get and not what training they actually need. And that is what makes a good training plan. It is, what skills do I need and what's the best way of getting those skills? Then think about how you can get funding. If your first priority is how can I get as much money in, you will start to write a plan based on that, not based on your actual needs. And that is where the biggest issue comes from.
Okay, thanks. And that probably takes it back into the starting point that you had in your presentation around the training needs analysis being the basis to look at the workforce development planning. So
it is the people. It's always, what do your people need to make your business better. The funding is helpful, but funding the wrong training, it's a waste of my money or our money. It's a bigger waste of the company's money, and it's a hell of a waste of everybody's time.
Okay, look, thank you, David. That's all the questions that we have time for. So I just look to wrap things up and bring the session to a close. So just to thank yourself, David, for your time and contribution this morning. I hope you'll all agree with me that it's been a very insightful session. I'd also like to thank Tourism NI for hosting the webinar series with us, and to thank all of you for attending. I hope you've gained value and insight from this webinar, and I urge you to look at the other sessions in the information series, which may also be of benefit. We have a final session coming up this afternoon on workplace health and wellbeing support, and all of the sessions within the series are being recorded, and as part of the follow-up communication, you'll get access to that as well as the presentation. So hopefully we might see some of you in the final session this afternoon, but for now I'll close the event. Thank you for your time, and everyone have a great week ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roshi. Right, thank you, everyone. Bye.